Recording. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our May PTSA meeting, our final PTSA meeting of the year. It's hard to believe this school year has really flown by. So we're so glad that you're joining us for this final meeting. We will be having the coffee chat this Friday with Ms. Bolden. So do mark your calendars for that. It's at 9 a.m. And you can find the Zoom information on the PTSA website. So we have some open positions. We are going to be holding an election for actually one position tonight. So we'll be doing that. We'll be talking about post-prom. We've been hard at work on that. Graduation bus tickets to DAR Constitution Hall. We'll go to Nicole, Miss Walker for the principal's update, and then and also Miss Walker again for the summer college readiness program over the summer. And then finally, we have our guest speaker tonight, Miss Amy Smith from Power Hour Editing. And we're very excited for that presentation on writing your college essays. So we'll move on to the next slide. So to start off our meeting, May meeting is when we hold our elections for our open positions. We still have openings that we did not receive nominations for. So we did not receive nominations for the first vice president and the second vice president, the recording secretary, and I think that covers the positions, and the treasurer, sorry, and the treasurer position. And treasurer position we'll be holding tonight. And that'll be the only one for tonight. And then for some other openings that we have a graduation bus coordinator. That's a one-time event. So some of our activities are not very time consuming. They're just one-time events. And we do have a few other positions like that. If your time is limited, we do appreciate any time you're able to give us. We are looking for membership and directory co-chair. Very key.
Brian, sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but I just thought since that's kind of what I do, I thought maybe I'd take that off and talk about that. So the membership and directory co-chair, I added that I'm still going to be the membership and directory chair next year, but I'm looking for someone who might want to come on and learn about the position to take it over in the next year or two. So you wouldn't be alone if you wanted to sign up for that position. I'd be here the whole year and you would just be assisting me in learning how it works and seeing if it's something that you want to do. So it wouldn't be a full-time obligation. And that's the same with the website co-coordinator. I currently run the website, but if anybody has website expertise, I'm not an expert. I do the best that I can with the website, but if anybody enjoys that kind of work, obviously I'll still be around to help update it. But if anybody has any ideas for making it better, I'd be happy to take on to have someone come in and help me out with that. So just wanted to jump in real quick and mention that. Also, the board positions, treasurer and recording secretary, are technically still open because we were going to have our vote before this meeting tonight, but we didn't have a quorum. So we are going to try again Friday morning before the coffee chat to do that vote. So there's still time if you would like to be considered for treasurer or for recording secretary. You can send an email to one of us listed here on the screen. Otherwise, we will hold elections again in the fall during our first meeting. So if you don't make it to this Friday, there's still time for that. So, but feel free to email me or Brian or Sab. Our emails are here on the screen and we'd be happy to talk to you about any of the positions. So sorry about that, Brian, I'll let you take it back.
Thank you very much. There's also some positions that are not on here, but we will need a volunteer coordinator, as we're now back to having in-person events. We also have a student engagement coordinator. We recently did find a Latino parent student network liaison, so we're very pleased with that. And then we also have an opening for the Asian parent student network liaison. So those are some key positions that we have open. We hope you consider helping us out and volunteering. PTSA doesn't run itself. We really do need great volunteers like yourselves to help us. So but reach out to us, as Nikki said. All right, next slide. So we've been hard at work on post-prom planning. So as you may know, for any senior parents on the call tonight, prom is coming up. We're pleased that there's an in-person prom this Saturday night, and immediately following the prom on Sunday morning at 12 a.m., right at the beginning of Sunday morning on May 22nd, there will be a post-prom party, a safe place for our seniors to go following prom to have a great night, fun, and it's going to be a Bowl America in Gaithersburg from 12 a.m. to 4:30 a.m. Tickets for prom and post-prom can be purchased on the Wooten website, and we do have the link up on here, and these slides will be posted on the PTSA website. We still need donations, and the link is there up on the screen, and you may have seen the link in some of the communications that have gone out recently. And we're still looking for some prizes. One of the things that we do throughout the night is we give lots of prizes to our seniors. We would like them to stay throughout the night, and we have some smaller prizes and we have some bigger prizes. So it will be a really fun night, but we do need a few more prizes, and most of all, we need some volunteers. So thank you, Nikki, for putting that in the chat. So the links are in the chat. We desperately need volunteers. I know the hours are very difficult, but we are trying to put together a really safe and fun event for our seniors. We have very limited number of volunteers, and we could really use help, especially from our junior parents who can maybe help out for this event this year, and then next year, maybe the next class junior parents can help out. But we would certainly appreciate it. You can reach out to me if you're able to volunteer. And then we can go on to the next slide. And then I mentioned the graduation bus to DAR Constitution Hall. It makes getting down to DAR very easy. The buses leave from Wooten, and they head right, to Constitution Hall. You get out right in front, you pick them up at the end, and come right back to the Wooten parking lot. So really easy way to get downtown. The tickets are really inexpensive, $15 for PTSA members, $20 for non-members, and we've sold quite a lot of tickets. I think we only have like about 30 remaining.
Yeah, I put it on here on the screen. I checked right before we started. We have 32 tickets left. And I've had a lot of emails about how will you get the tickets and all of that. I'm going to be emailing out that information ahead of day of graduation, and you can either print that out, the ticket that I sent you, or you can just show it on your phone. It's really the volunteers there will have a list, and they will show your name and which bus you're on. So in the event that somehow you don't have that, you don't need to worry. We will know which bus you are on. We will probably identify the 4 buses by a color, and you'll just be assigned to a certain color bus. But it's important to know which one you are on, because we're going to have to plan out based on party size which parties can fit on which bus, so that you and your party can stay together. And then on the way back, you'll need to go on the exact same color bus so that we have enough space. There are going to be 4 buses, and they hold about 50 passengers each. So, but again, on the website, my email is on there, and if you have questions, you can always reach out to me. Also, if for some reason you bought tickets, it doesn't work out, plans change, you can always email me for a refund as well. So it's not high risk. If you buy them, you can definitely get a refund if something changes.
Thank you, Nikki. All right, next slide. And now I'll turn it over to Ms. Walker to talk, to provide the principals updates now.
Good evening, everyone. It's so good to join you all this evening. On behalf of Ms. Bolden and also Wooten High School, I just wanted to share the updates with everyone for the month of May. First off, I just want to say we are approaching the end of the year. This has been a fast and amazing year, and we are so appreciative and thankful for the partnership with PTSA on the executive board, our members, families, just the support with all of the events, and just participating and just being involved and back with us in school. So we're so appreciative of all of the partnership that we've had this year. As Brian mentioned earlier, we are approaching prom season and the end of the year. So just a couple updates that's coming up in the next couple of weeks. First, we mentioned prom is on Saturday and our post-prom is Saturday night. So please, if you can volunteer with post-prom, please follow up with PTSA. Our Summer Institute is now closed. Students had opportunities to participate in Summer Institute, but registration at this time has closed. We want to talk about that's coming up in terms of scheduling, particularly for next week. First and foremost, it is the last week for seniors in the building. So just some things to keep in mind and to remind your senior, if you have a 12th grade student, to start turning in items that belong to school so they can clear their financial obligations. For example, making sure they begin to return their Chromebooks and chargers. Any lost textbooks, make sure they check the room and in the backpacks and just make sure that they turn things in. Their last day of school is on Friday of next week. So again, it's the seniors' last week of school. In addition to next week, we also have MISA and government testing for our students who are currently in biology and government, and particularly with government who are not taking the AP exam. So that means that our students will be testing. We will have an abbreviated schedule. That information has gone out, but we will continue to send out messages and reminders, and it's also posted on the website. Just the things to think ahead in terms of June. We mentioned about graduation is on the 14th. That means that unless for our underclassmen, schools are closed. So the days we usually have graduation is for seniors, and the school staff all go down to DAR to celebrate the seniors and their great accomplishments. Our underclassmen will be home that day. So schools are closed for grades 9 and 11. The last day of school for students is June 17th. That is a change from all of the snow days from earlier in the year, and it is an early release day. So we just wanted to make sure that you were aware of the upcoming dates that are happening at Wooten as we approach the final month of school. It's been a great year. And again, we thank you for all of your support and partnership with us here at the school. And that's my updates from principal's updates on behalf of the school.
Then, and I believe, and let's go to the next slide. Okay, and okay.
Brian, did you want me to talk about Ms. Carr at this point? I wasn't sure if you wanted me to put that in. Perfect.
Yes,
okay,
please.
Okay, can I share the screen? Because I'll share the update. It's easier to see with my apologies. Okay. I'm going to present this. So on behalf of Ms. Carr, she wanted me to share some information with you. Hopefully, here we go. Sorry, I have a little bit of a lag in my screen I can see. There are some opportunities for our rising seniors coming up in the summer, beginning in July. There will be Rising Seniors Summer Workshop opportunities for our rising seniors to get their jumpstart ready for the senior year and the college application process. The information will be posted on the website in the next couple of weeks, but she wanted me to give you all a brief preview of the information that will be shared. Again, there will be opportunities for our students, our rising seniors, to have workshops July and August. Some of the topics will include financial aid, common application, what it is and what to look for, and also the student essay. So these are some opportunities that students will have here at the school. She also shared that there will be district-wide opportunities for rising seniors, as well as partnerships with neighboring schools that have been traditionally done in the past. They will be coming back this year. So students will have an opportunity to join students from other schools in the area, such as Churchill, Richard Montgomery, and Einstein, on workshops and topics that will take place as well. So there'll be multiple opportunities for students, rising seniors in the months of July and August for their summer workshops and getting them ready for their senior year. If you have any questions or suggestions, she's open to hearing about suggestions as they are continuing to plan for the workshops. She asked that you reach out to her. I provided the email, and I will provide the slide to Brian for PTSA, so that information is shared with everybody. But she wanted you to be aware that this information is coming out in the next couple of weeks, and to look forward to seeing it on the Wooten website.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
And now for our special presentation tonight, it's my great pleasure to introduce you to Amy Smith, who's the owner of Power Hour Editing and uses her journalism and PR experience to help students find and amplify their own unique voices. She has an extensive track record in coaching students to get to the heart of the story, fast to communicate messaging to stand out in the competitive admissions process. Amy graduated in the top 10% of her class from Northwestern's Medill School of Journalism. Her article on offbeat tactics students use to catch the eye of admissions officers won first place in the William Randolph Hearst Pulitzer's of College Journalism contest. Featured on the Today Show, ABC National News, and the Wall Street Journal and New York Times, Amy is a prior National Wire columnist. She authored an essay in Knowing Pains, Women on Love, Sex and Work in Our 40s, and was featured in I Love Mondays and Other Confessions from Devoted Working Moms. Amy presented at Deggie's College Education Entertainment Summit, was an invited panelist at the Association for Education and Journalism and Mass Communication Conference, and is a frequent speaker at schools on the writing process. Married to Mitch for 26 years, Amy has 3 sons, graduates of Vanderbilt and Duke, and a junior at the University of South Carolina. And now I'll turn it over to Amy Smith.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you, Wooten, for having me. I love talking to schools, and I really appreciate being with you guys. So I'd mentioned to Brian that if he is monitoring the chat, if somebody has a burning question they really want to ask, please interrupt me, Brian, because I don't look at the chat while I'm presenting. The other thing I want to mention is that I tend to move really fast through the information because I have a ton to share with you. And I do have Q&A at the end, but again, if I move too fast or you guys need further explanation, please interrupt me. So here's what you can expect tonight. So I'm going to talk to you about where words matter on college applications. I'll explain the COVID-19 effect, how the pandemic has and has not affected what we're doing and applying to colleges now. I'll talk to you a little bit about what a wow factor is. This is a term I put together to help students stand out, and I'm going to give you the secret to that tonight. I'll take you through my top do's and don'ts, which are basically the roadblocks I tend to see in teenage writing and how you can avoid those yourself. I'll show you the essay prompts for the class of 2023 because we know what those are. And I will also share some examples of what I call rockstar essays. So essays that I've seen that really are kind of neat, and it tends to be a favorite part of the presentation, and hopefully that will inspire some of your ideas as well. And I will also let you know what you can do now, because there definitely are pieces of the application that, time permitting, you can take care of. So these are typical student goals when I start this type of a presentation, and when I hear from families, people want to know how to start, how personal should I be, how important is it, how can I be a great storyteller. Everyone's goals tend to be somewhat in this area. This is a great quote from a parent who attended one of my talks. She said, "I've been reading about how important it is not to overlook this part of the application and to use the space in a way that doesn't just list all the random things you've done, but help further illustrate the person you are and how you'll contribute to the student body, consistent with each school's specific mission, a tall task." So yes, it is a tall task. It deserves some time and attention, but I will promise each and every student on the call tonight, you can shine like a rock star. I promise you that. I have never met someone who can, and I promise you that each one of you guys can as well. Okay, so again, thanks. Brian gave you a bit of my introduction, but what I want to point out is what I've been doing my entire career since I was a high school student myself, working on a high school newspaper. I studied traditional journalism, which is storytelling. I launched a PR firm, which is helping companies tell their story. I launched a parenting website, which was kind of a passion project for me to write about parenting tips and tools. And when I launched Power Hour Editing, it was really putting everything I've been doing my entire career into what you're about to do. So you're being asked to be a journalist, which is a great storyteller, and a publicist, which is setting yourself apart in a competitive environment. So in a competitive environment, words do matter. And if you look at the puzzle on the left side, these are all the different pieces of you that you'll be presenting to colleges when you apply. And as you'll see later, the college admissions officers were asked to review your entire puzzle in a very short period of time. So they are processing your GPA and how you fit into the rigor of Wooten. Demonstrated interest may or may not matter at different colleges, but that's showing that you care, visiting, emailing, etc. The main essay, which is what we're going to focus on tonight, your extracurriculars, that's your activity list, recommendation letters from guidance department and teachers, and then your test scores. And as we know, and these are all on the right, all the different parts of the application where you'll encounter writing. So the activity section, the main essay, supplementals, and we're going to talk about every single one of these, by the way. The optional COVID question, email correspondence optional, the application itself, and then the additional information section, which is where students explain extra things that aren't explained elsewhere on the application. And then test scores I've crossed out because, as many of you know, we are in this test optional surge. It's a historic time in college admissions where you absolutely can apply test optional and get into, so many colleges are dropping the test scores. So if you're a great test taker and you have a great score, go for it, submit. If you're not a great test taker and you didn't get the score that you want to present, guess what? It's a great time to apply to college, okay? But if you're dropping the test score out of the equation, out of this puzzle on the left, everything else bubbles up a bit in importance. So how can you create your story for success? If Brian told me I had to stop right now, I would end it with this slide. Communicate your wow factor, okay? I'm not going to, but you want to communicate the pieces of you that only you can say. Anyone can say, I'm hardworking, I'm a great athlete, I'm this, I'm that, all these declarative statements, but only you can share your unique life experiences that contribute to the greater story of you. Now, we're not going to talk about the activity list, but I always like to drop one slide in because I think the activity list is as important as the main essay. This is the story of you over time. It's your college resume. So definitely make sure you have lots of wow factors in that as well. When I've helped students who I didn't work with in the process do appeals to UMD, let's say, I do see activity lists that kind of fell short. So make sure you pay attention to that section. Okay, let's start with the main essay. So I like to start my brainstorming sessions with my students by saying, what do you love more than anything else in the world? What makes your heart beat out of your chest? I think if you can find a topic that you love, you'll be excited to write about it and you'll have a ton of information to write about it as well. So let me take you through my top do's and don'ts. Okay, I'll explain a little bit more about this. We'll start at the top and we're going to move around clockwise. So first of all, don't rush, it's a process. It is like, you want to think about it more like a marathon than a sprint because there are so many moving parts that you want to give yourself time to be as creative as possible. The next tip, don't use $5 words. What that means is don't try to impress just for the sake of impressing, okay? If you speak with big words, big language, you're a huge reader and you've got this huge arsenal of vocabulary in your brain, go for it. But don't use the thesaurus, like a tongue twister there, just to impress somebody. You want to talk like you, okay? Like a teenager, like a 17 or 18-year-old. That's what your reader is looking for. I had a student once who described something that sounded, I said, that really sounds like you had a huge epiphany. So he said, absolutely, Amy, it was an epiphany. So the way he typed it, I thought, I'm not sure he knows what it means. So I said to him, do you have any idea? And he said, Amy, I've got no idea, but I love the sound of that word. I want it in my essay. So I said, no. Figure out what it means, use it in a couple of sentences. Don't use a word that you don't know. If you end up doing college interviews down the road, they'll have it, they may ask you about it. So you definitely want to use words that are comfortable. I had a teenager who started an essay that said, for my first meeting on a startup idea, I dressed appropriately, boxers and a t-shirt. Now, as the mom of 3 boys, I could relate to that. I thought everybody's always in their pajamas. Okay, don't let your parent write it or even heavily influence it. So I like to start my brainstorming with parents. I love to ask parents questions right up front because I think parents have lots of great facts and things about the students that the students sometimes even forget. But students, you are the architect of your best story. You want everyone on the sideline to be like a coach that can sort of give you ideas, but in the end, you're making the ultimate decisions for your essays. So parents, don't be afraid of teenage speak. It's actually, it makes essays beautiful when they sound like teenagers. It really does. Next, don't raise red flags. So it's not a bad idea to show grit and resilience, but not hopelessness. You're selling your ability to thrive in an independent living situation on a college campus. Next, don't make it difficult to digest for your reader. So like I mentioned earlier, do you remember that puzzle I showed you a few slides ago? If you imagine as an admissions representative that you have to read all these data points in 10 to 12 minutes, that's the average read time. It's a lot of information to process. So students, make your application easy to get through. Sequence logically so that as they're reading the story of you and getting through the data points of you, each point is adding something new and unique about you. The next tip, don't resume repeat. It's fine to elaborate and go beyond your activities list. It's okay to add anecdotes, but you don't need your main essay to be a robotic regurgitation of what you've done in high school. Your readers are sophisticated. They know how to read through these things. They're trained in that. So trust that each piece will be reviewed in a smart way. Okay, next tip, don't underestimate simplicity. So you'll have up to 650 words for your main essay. Some of the simplest ideas that I've heard about over the years have been extremely successful. So I'll share some with you that I've heard from admissions officers and that some of my own students who have approved me to share this with you. Okay, so there was one college admissions officer that said the favorite essay was the student who wrote about the difference between waffles and pancakes and why this student was similar and different from these two breakfast foods. UNC Chapel Hill told me last year their favorite essay was a girl who wrote about getting to hockey practice at 5:30 in the morning. She talked about her routine, how she was a morning person, her family, how she interacted, how she got herself going in the morning, and they loved the essay. They said they felt like they really got to know her really well. I've had students write about their love for hot tea and fishing, anything and everything goes. A friend's daughter several years back wrote an essay for Towson University, and they sent her a handwritten note that said, "We read 13,000 essays this year, and yours was our favorite one." She wrote about her Birkenstock sandals, how they represented her, how they were versatile and adaptable. They were the shoes she wore to tour places because she was so adventurous. They were the shoes she slipped into to run to safety when she found a bat on her pillow on a camping trip. And it was all about the Birkenstocks and her. It really told a great story of her. Okay, the next tip, don't repeat the school website verbatim. This gets a little bit into the supplemental essays, those additional questions you may be asked. It's important that you do research now about each college and try to find unique facts so that you can really sound like you did your homework, you understand how you fit into the school. Next, repeat. So everyone has what we call writing tics. So these are things that we do as writers, I have them too, that we sort of do and we can't help it, okay? So I do see repetitive words, repetitive thoughts in essays. So again, think of the essay as moving forward in a car. You want to be moving forward to the destination in forward motion without continually repeating yourself. Next, last tip here, don't worry if you can't write the beginning first. The beginning and the end of your essay, that's the hardest part. You want to think about a great essay like a great sandwich. The bread on the beginning and the end can change a million times, but that's still the same sandwich. It's still the same collection of experiences, stories, anecdotes that you choose to share. Okay, let's move on to the essay do's. So I mentioned I do a survey at the end of each admissions year, and I ask my students for a tip for you, juniors, the next crop of students coming through, okay? And in the beginning, I realized that my students had the exact same tip. They were using different words to say it, but they all said the same thing. It's at the top of this grid, start early. The good news is you're in the early zone. If you're a junior though, you really do want to start working on some of these pieces so that as the supplements come out this summer, you're ready to keep plowing through the process and go into senior year as unencumbered as you possibly can. Okay, the next tip, know your audience. Some colleges allow you to get to know who these people are. You may see a little bio, what they like to do, what they like to read. Other colleges, it's very much a behind the curtain thing. You have no idea who's reading it. But do know this, because I heard this in an admissions seminar once, which I loved. The admissions person said, remind your students that we're real people sitting behind the desk. We have lives just like they do. We have good days and bad days and opinions and perspectives, and we're real people. You want to write for a real person, okay? Not stiff and stilted writing, but real conversational writing that will draw somebody in. The next tip, make an action plan. I'm very into creating a plan, a roadmap to get to the finish line. There is a form that was sent out in your newsletter. If you guys want follow-up materials, anyone who signed up on that form, I will send you a detailed email this week with a bunch of links, some additional tips, and my free essay planner. It's also on my website if you want it. But I do believe in making a plan. I have some tips for you on how to do that. The next tip here, answer the prompt. So sometimes you have an option on which prompt to answer and sometimes you don't. But once you know what prompt you're answering, make sure you answer it. I see students sometimes going so off-road and taking detours and kind of not coming back to center. So do make sure that you're answering what's being asked of you and that you stick to the word count. Even if the box on the Common App lets you go beyond the word count, do not do that because you don't know what's going to happen when you hit send, and just stay at or under the word count. Next tip, why essays? Connect the dots. So you will likely be asked, why do you want to go to a certain school? It's a very popular supplemental question. Many schools ask it. You may not, but many of you will. This is a connect the dots exercise. You want to connect the dots between you and the school in a creative and unique and thoughtful way. The next tip, be authentic. When I interview admissions officers all the time, I will interview them about anything and everything, and I'm constantly getting intel from them to share. When I distill all of their advice, everything they're saying though, and you're going to see some tips in a few minutes, it all boils down to this. Be authentic. Be you. Be a 17 or 18-year-old with an authentic voice. That's what they want to hear. That's what they want to see. The next tip, give a window to you. It doesn't have to be fancy or complicated. I've had students write about a unique cultural heritage or background, losing weight, gaining weight, anything and everything, some food that they love. I mean, anything goes. A lot of shoes. I don't know if it's because I share that Birkenstocks example, but teenagers, for some reason, it seems love shoes, and they are constantly writing about different shoes. But the bottom line is, what's your biggest headline? What is it about you that you want to share? The next tip is proofread. Now, I'm an editor, so clearly I'm partial to this tip, but you do want another set of eyes on your essays, whether it's a parent, a friend, a teacher, someone you trust. The only thing I want to caution you to is this. If you show an essay to 4 people, you're going to get 6 opinions. And you want to make sure that as you're getting this advice, you're the architect of the story, students. You're the ones that takes the advice and decides, how does this fit into what I want to say, what I want to do? College of Charleston told me that they had a student who uploaded breakup texts from a boyfriend by accident last year, or 2 years ago maybe. You don't want that to be you. So again, proofread, download to PDF, check it out, take a highlighter, make sure that everything looks the way that you want it to look. Don't be that student that uploads breakup texts by accident, okay? The next tip, show, don't tell. Your college essay is very, very different than writing an English class. So there is no rubric, there's no, you're not given a checklist, but really you have this wide open field of creativity where you can write and say almost anything. So make sure that as you're doing this, though, there's one thing that I'm sure you're doing a lot of in English class, which is show, don't tell. What does that mean? It means don't make declarative statements. Like I said earlier, I'm smart, I'm hardworking, I'm thoughtful, whatever. Show with example. Show, prove it. Almost pretend like you're a lawyer in a courtroom defending you in a great way, showing what makes you unique and what makes you these things that you're claiming. The final tip, write it, file it, revisit it, and read it out loud. What that means is try to get your writing done, try to get it to the 80% mark, and then put it aside, move on to other things. Because when you come back to it with fresh eyes, you will see things that you just don't see when you're in the weeds, okay? All right, so the prompts. These are on my blog at powerhourediting.com. I've got a blog post for each one of these if you want to take a look with some tips, but I'm just going to show you really quickly. This is the Common App. This is confirmed for juniors. So I've put in yellow some of the key parts of each prompt, and I've crossed out what they have deleted from the Common App, and I've shown you what's new. Even though they took out the last one on this page, the problem you've solved, it's still a great question, and you do have a free choice. So that could be your prompt. Now, a prompt is just that. It's just to prompt an idea. And again, students, you don't have to answer every single one of these. Someone thought that one, so I want to make it clear. You have up to 650 words to tell your best story. Okay, so these are the prompts. These are more for the Common App: an accomplishment, a topic you find so engaging. This is a new one last year, something that made you happy or thankful, and then the free choice. So you can answer any one of these. There's also the Coalition app. Very few students need to use the Coalition app. It used to be that UMD was only on Coalition. That's no longer the case. I only had one student last year, all year, who used Coalition, and he did it by choice. But look at the prompts. Maybe there's a question there that appeals to you, that brings up a great story for you. Here's some more. And again, I'll share, those are online, and I will share those with anybody that wants. So if I had to boil it down to sort of what I call the Amy's essay prompt, it's tell me a story about you. What makes you tick? What makes you unique? What makes you a special person? What character statement do you want to share? Extra credit, show me you'll shine on my campus. That doesn't mean say in your essay, I'll be a great student on your campus. But it means you're telling a story about you, your life, your experiences that demonstrates you're ready to fly the nest and live independently and thrive on campus. Again, don't tell me what you think I want to hear. That's a trap. You definitely don't want to go there. And do not repeat your activity section. Very important. Let's talk briefly about the COVID-19 question. Totally optional. It's the third admission cycle we're seeing this in. It's basically COVID happened. How were you affected? Your school, Wooten, has an opportunity, and I'm sure your guidance department is doing this, they have an opportunity to talk about what happened at Wooten specifically. You should only talk about what happened to you specifically if it adds to your story. Again, I'm asking a lot of admissions officers about this, and across the board, I'm hearing if it adds to the story, go for it. If it doesn't, don't worry about it. They're not looking for you to say, I was doing hybrid learning, my sports were canceled. That's something anyone can say. Last year, I had some students who did something unique during COVID, like they were a student leader, let's say, and had to learn all this new technology for the first time during COVID, and they talked about that. Or they started a brand new activity because of the pandemic. Great, go for it. It could be a few sentences. This is a little more intel on the COVID question, will be interpreted differently by college. You're welcome to ask them. Forbes had a great quote. Don't hesitate to use this option, the COVID question, to explain your situation, and then write your college essay about the greater story of you. Okay, so it's not your biggest headline, but it may be a piece of your story. These are a few more things we're seeing as a result of the pandemic. Okay, we are definitely seeing an increase in applications, per student, more gap years, more deferrals, more test optional. It's affecting college admissions a bit, but don't let it freak you out. I'm telling you, all of my students got into colleges last year. Everybody's getting into schools. It's not going to affect your ability to get in. You just have to be thoughtful about where you apply and trying to give yourself as much of an edge as you can. These are some quotes from admissions officers on what they'd like to see from you. And if you look at the yellow, why it's important to you, how can you showcase who you are? UMD had a great quote. It's the dessert of the meal. He said, I love to read the whole application and then the writing. So you're serving dessert. How amazing is that? University of Georgia does not have to be about some incredible hardship or obstacle. I'm more interested in how creative your topic is and how descriptive you can make your writing. So this, again, it all boils down to authenticity, right? Maybe not the dessert, but the rest of it, right? It's all about being authentic. Let's talk briefly about supplements. These are the additional questions that may be asked of you by certain colleges. Some schools have 0 supplements. Some schools have a lot of supplements. It just depends. These are supplements from last year. I cannot guarantee you they'll be the same again, but UMD has tended to have the same supplements each year. These are complete the sentence. So you can see the last one, something you might not know about me, as I filled this out for myself, just to show you how short it is. I used to avoid biking, but fell in love with a stationary spin bike during the pandemic when I rode to destinations around the world from my basement. True story. 2 sentences. You just get to know me a little bit. That's what they're looking for. You can absolutely have fun with that. University of Michigan. I'm fairly certain these are repeating this year, but don't quote me on it. I emailed admissions. They said, yes, I'm trying to verify, but they've tended to ask these questions each year. They asked 2 questions. Number 1, what community do you belong to? And number 2, why Michigan? They're asking you to prove why you want to go there. And they're asking you, what community are you in? Get creative with these questions. Don't think about it so literally. You can have a lot of fun with it. So what is next? What can you work on now? Number 1, research your list. You definitely want to be looking into the colleges you're applying to, how they connect to you, how they fit what you're looking for. You can absolutely draft your activity list. You can start thinking about your main essay. You can think about whether or not you want to answer the COVID question. Now, if you'd like my follow-up materials, I'll send my free planner and a bunch of other info and add you to my newsletter list. You can take a photo of the scanner. I'll put the link in the chat in a couple minutes, and you'll get some more information from me. I like to include this quote: reading great writing inspires great writing. I know you're asked to read a lot for school every day, but think about, before you sit down to write your main essay, think about reading something creative so that you can get creative yourself. Let me see if there are any questions before I get into the examples. Does anyone have any questions at all? Ryan, do you see anything?
There's no questions that I see in the chat.
Okay, great. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop one quick thing into the chat for you guys, just so that you've got the link if you'd like to sign up and you didn't get the scanner. I'd love to stay in touch with you. And then I will read you some examples of essays. Okay. Now, while, oops, I'm so sorry. Share. Sorry about that. Okay. So, let me get to the, okay, let me just give you one little sort of, I'm going to put in the chat. Sorry about that. Okay. So when I read you the, I'm going to send you the link in the chat so that you can sign up if you'd like. When I read you these examples of what I call rockstar essays, I want to just mention 2 things. One is, I'm not reading the entire essay or we'd be here all night. I'm going to read you a couple of just excerpts to try to trigger creativity from you, and also to show you how people write about everything and anything. The other thing I'll mention to you is, I'm not, I'm sorry, these are approved to share. That was the other thing I wanted to say, that students give me a survey at the end of the year, and I at that point say, would you like to share your writing? So these are I'm sharing it anonymously, but they have approved to be shared. Okay, so let me read you a couple of examples to trigger your creativity. First one, student wrote about being scared of clouds. I know it sounds ridiculous, but I used to be terrified of clouds. It was a peculiar day at school, and instead of working on my subtraction assignment, I was fixated on the dark events unfolding outside. An aggressive wind tore through the playground, accompanied by a dark, churning sky. I felt like a deer in headlights, but my classmates carried on, seemingly detached from the outside world. Suddenly, the principal initiated an emergency shelter order. From the look on my teacher's face, I knew this was serious. A tornado never touched down that day, but the experience lingered in my mind for years. The words tornado and storm triggered me, and I'd do everything I could to avoid hearing them. This irrational fear began to consume me. I would vomit before school, even if I saw a single darkish cloud. So he talks about how this affected his ability to perform in different areas of life. So whenever a storm appeared during my baseball games, my pitching ability would plummet. He's going on and on. Let's see. So as I grew up, my fear of storms steadily eroded. Oh, I'm so sorry. So he talked about kind of getting over the fear a bit. I'm kind of jumping around here. Fast forward to the present. After I learned about clouds, I can exclaim with confidence that my crippling weather anxiety has been completely vanquished. Dark clouds, thunderstorms, and even tornadoes exhilarate me. I might even chase a storm if I had the opportunity. After deconstructing my fear, I learned that experiencing what makes me anxious helps me realize that things are not as bad as they seem. More importantly, I discovered that I was innately observant, which was the driving factor behind my storm anxiety all along. As it turns out, being a keen observer has been an advantage for me in so many different areas, such as sports and music. So he talks about being a lacrosse goalie, rapid reaction time, balls flinging at him 90 miles an hour, and being in the marching band, and just being, using all these keen observation skills. So at the very end, he says, it's been nearly a decade since I battled weather anxiety, but the qualities of observation and perseverance have become irreplaceable components to my fast-paced life. These have sculpted me into an ambitious young man and will continue to guide me into the next chapter of my life. Wherever that chapter leads me, I will never forget that every cloud has a silver lining. I thought that was a great essay. Another one, I am wired to be a caregiver. I always have been, I always will be. I used to get a lot of migraines. And a hospital neurosurgeon showed me an MRI scan, of my brain and my spine. No, this is not a sob story. This is how I got my spark. Seeing inside my own body and understanding how to target my specific health problem made me fall in love with medicine. So he talks about being an EMT and experiences, seeing stab wounds, drug overdoses, car crashes, treating broken bones, and even once being attacked by a patient. He said, working as an EMT showed me that a short 15 minutes from my house, there are people struggling to survive, to pay next month's rent, and to find food for their children. And he says, working as an EMT, I'm skipping around again, was a huge wake-up call that I also had to take better care of me. I used to be a diehard fan of junk food, anything deep fried or sweet. I weighed 40% more than I should have and had high cholesterol, the perfect combination for diabetes. I joined my school's cross-country team and ran off 30 pounds. And he says at the end, he just talks about making a difference for people. So there were a few other parts of that one, but that kind of gives you the idea of how he talked about that. Another student wrote about orange juice, believe it or not. Every Sunday morning, I have my favorite drink, orange juice with breakfast. I like the different tastes and emotions it makes me feel. It can be sweet, but also sour and uncomfortable. I've gone through my whole life living with some sweet and sour myself. I guess I'm a creature of habit because even during my childhood, my Saturday schedule was exactly the same every week. My dad took me to get allergy shots, one in each arm simultaneously. Then we'd watch the freight train carrying Tropicana juice from Miami to New York to make me feel better. The shots were painful and both of my arms were sore. But those trains always put me in a good mood and took my mind off my allergies. So he talks about how his allergies affected him and how it made him more alert and aware of his surroundings and led him to love science. My ability to notice the small details and make sense of the complexities of science sparked my interest and curiosity about our greater world. I've also learned to advocate for myself. So he talked about advocating in restaurants and with friends. At the end, he says, so as I drink my orange juice every Sunday, I relate the orange juice to my life. The sour acidity of the juice reflects how my allergies have been hard to swallow, and the sweetness of the juice illustrates how rewarding my life has come as I've learned to grow and adapt to them. Okay, the last example I want to share, the one thing I didn't mention to you guys is sometimes people say to me, are there any topics I shouldn't write about? So sometimes you'll read online that you shouldn't write about death, depression, divorce, sports, and camp. The reason we hear this is because these are topics that are very prevalent in the teenage community. So if every admissions officer is getting a pile of essays that sounds the same, nothing really stands apart. So again, like I said earlier, regardless of your topic, I don't personally believe that any one of these topics is off limits. I've seen students write about every single one of these topics with great success. But you want to keep in mind that you want to make your topic unique in its delivery. That's the most important thing. So I want to read you quickly a camp example because that's something a lot of teenagers go to camp. So it's a very common topic, but here's someone who handled it in a very unique way. At 9 years old, approaching the dusty cabin porch, I noticed the enormous size 11 flip-flops that belonged to my counselor Ward. To me, he was a giant, and I looked up to him as his superhero qualities calmed homesickness, led character development devotions, and kept order in our corner of the mess hall. Ward, along with my subsequent counselors, gave me 6 unforgettable summers. When I turned 17, I jumped at the opportunity to be a counselor, and I was intoxicated by the idea of putting my leadership, problem-solving skills, and playful personality to work. I expected to teach sailing, remind my young campers to brush their teeth, and eat loads of biscuits with fellow counselors. What caught me by storm was participating in a 1,600-person evacuation that tested my leadership skills in ways I never could have imagined before that first ominous raindrop fell. Now, the reason I share this one with you, you could tell in this student's activity list that he was a leader. No doubt was this kid a leader, okay? It was very clear in what he had done. But he didn't in his main essay say, I'm a leader. Do you please know that I'm a leader? He did the reverse. He said that his leadership skills were tested by this experience. And he says, leadership was easy for me when everything went according to plan. But when outside forces tested me, I learned that you need a big toolbox if you're going to be a great leader. And he talked about how his young campers were teachers to him, and they taught him so much about resilience, getting through a crisis. And he said, I expected to be a teacher, but watching how resilient and playful my temporarily displaced 9-year-olds could be, I was a student as well. See, he closes the essay with this. After returning to camp and assessing the damage, I realized that some valuable character building in each of us had taken place. From the outside of our weathered cabin, no one could imagine the magic of what happens inside. I slipped off my shoes and went in. I took a moment to look back and smile at the size 11 flip-flops I just slipped onto the porch that didn't look so huge anymore. Okay, so I love that example for so many reasons because, you know, he wrote about camp, he wrote about testing leadership skills. It's a nice approach and it did well for him. So we are going to take questions, but first I want to answer some questions that came in on the forum from you guys. I had some people signed up in advance, so I'd like to answer those first.
Amy, we do have one question in the chat.
Okay, great. Let me go through these and then we'll go to that one because these are all Wooten questions, but I'm so glad you guys can start adding them to the chat, or I will, you can turn off your camera and ask yourself. First question asks for sample essays and pointers for successful essays. So I hope that I've answered that in this presentation. Second, how can you start the essay before the Common App opens in August? You can absolutely start your essay now because the prompts are official. They are official for the class of 2023. Third question, mostly about the essays, what to write about when you're someone who has had very little strife. You don't have to write about strife. I hope, again, that I've shown that through the examples. I've had students write about foods they love and adventures they've had. It does not have to be gloom and doom like that Georgia person said, Georgia admissions rep said. So, okay, Brian, hit me. What do we have?
The question in the chat is, what are your suggestions for students that have a learning disability in written expression?
That's a great question. So sometimes I recommend to my students, when you say it's difficult to write, maybe. So sometimes you can use your phone to record your voice and then pop that into a Google Doc and edit it from there. You can read your story to a parent or, a teacher if they're willing to do it. That's totally fair. And you don't necessarily, you don't have to be William Shakespeare to write an essay. You don't have to be an amazing writer. You just have to have a great story. So we all have a great story. And if you're struggling with the writing piece, see if you can find another way to get the words onto paper and then edit it from there. Good question, though. Good question. Any other questions? I'm so quiet. Turn off my slides. If anyone wants to turn on your camera and ask, I'd love to hear. And I will stay on here, by the way, until the last person leaves. So if anyone needs to hop off, I thank you for your time. And like I said, I'm more than happy to answer any questions. Okay. Here's a question from Marianne Hilbert. This is not an essay question per se, but I was curious why you thought there was such an increase in applications. I'll tell you why. So during the pandemic, with the shutdown, when things were not safe and we weren't leaving our homes, people couldn't go on campus to tour. So students were picking colleges out and sometimes even saying yes without ever stepping foot on college campuses. So even though they allowed some virtual tours and virtual sessions. So I think a lot of parents panicked and said, it's $50 or $75 to apply to a college, apply to as many as you want. I don't personally think that that's healthy for college admissions for anyone, students or schools. I like my students to have as much fuel in the tank, like I say, to get all the way to the finish line. And it's not realistic to apply to 20 schools. It's a lot of money, it's a lot of time. But I think that not being able to tour in combination with test optional, throwing this wrench into admissions where colleges are saying they're test optional, but we're hearing, are they really test optional? Are they really looking at it? And they caused a lot of stress. So I sit in on a lot of admissions sessions, and there was an admissions officer a week ago who said, I'm trying to think which college she was from. I don't want to quote without being sure, but she said, I don't have enough time in the day to look at test scores. If we're test optional, we're test optional. There are other schools where we questioned it a little bit, are they really being truthful with us? So I think people just wanted to give themselves a great chance, but I just, it's difficult. Okay, another good question though. What are some books you recommend to inspire creativity? There are tons of books on great college essays on Amazon. I've got some on my shelf here, and you can also Google and kind of look online. And really, honestly, any creative writing. I mean, you can look on, just Google creative writing examples. I just think that the way our brains work, if you look at some creative writing, I feel like our brains say, oh, I can do that. It sort of lights a spark. So good question. Another question. I'm a 9th grade mom, so not familiar with all the items. Can you please clarify what a coalition essay is? Yes. So there are 2 portals when you apply to college. One is the Common Application Portal. It has about 900 plus schools. Then we have the Coalition Portal. It's basically you get an account, you log in, you enter all of your basic information, and then you enter your writing, your main essay, and then your supplements by school. Coalition, it's just another portal. It has a smaller number of schools, but like I said, I used to work with it a lot because UMD was only on Coalition, but they moved to Common. So it's just another portal. If you Google Coalition app, you will see what it is, but it's basically how you apply to college. Some schools have their own portals where you have to sort of apply direct, but there are ways that you can, most students get into the Common app and you can apply to most of your schools there. Good question. 9th grade, you're welcome. 9th grade, 10th graders, my advice to you guys, focus on activities, dig in, dive in, engage. I like to say engaged, passionate, giving students in high school are engaged, passionate, giving students in college. And don't get involved just to look good or to impress. Get involved because it's a great thing to do. It's a healthy way to interact and get involved with your high school and be involved in your community. And bonus, it will look great for college too. Any other questions? No. Okay. I'm going to hang on till the last person leaves because I like to make sure that nobody has any questions. But thank you, Wooten. Thank you, Brian, for inviting me. And I wish every single one of you the best of luck with your applications. I know you'll do great, and I'm happy to have talked to you tonight.
Thank you so much, Amy, for that incredible presentation. We do appreciate it. And if anyone has any further questions, please ask Amy. She'll stay on. And we look forward to seeing you, next year in September. For those that are coming back and don't have seniors graduating, we will have a college fair in September. So we hope that you join us for that. And of course, our PTSA meetings will start back up then. Have a great summer, and we look forward to seeing you in the fall. Thank you, everybody.